name is Daniel Minty. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, teacher, and writer in Taos, New Mexico, in the United States. And sitting here with two of my colleagues who are co-sponsors of our annual World Championships of Shame Attacking. Looking forward to getting your entries for our contest this year. We'll have a little more information for you at the end of our presentation about how to submit those entries. And I'll let my two colleagues introduce themselves.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm Lee Harrington. I'm a psychiatrist, therapist, trainer, and coach here in California in the United States, in Davis. And we had so much fun last year with the entries for the shame attacking competition, and I'm excited to be a part of it again this year and see all that people will submit for the annual shame attacking World Championships.
Well, Daniel, Lee, I am so happy to be here. Heather wanted me to introduce myself. I am Clarissa de Fantabula, and I am here in lieu of Heather Clegg, who is a Team CBT therapist, but I will be one of the honored judges in the 2022 World Championship Shame Attacking Exercises, and I am so pleased to be here.
Oh, Contessa, it's wonderful to have you with us. Please do give our regards to Heather. And Lee, great to have you with us as well. So without further ado, I'll shamelessly get our convocation launched here. In thinking about our contest this year, I was remembering living in Europe back in the 80s. And I had some colleagues who would take me around places that you didn't often get to, if you were just a tourist in Europe. And I ended up in this dairy farm in the Tyrol, way up on a mountain. It was like something out of Brothers Grimm. There were these, beautiful big cows out in the pasture. And this family lived in this picturesque half-timbered house. And my colleague had a younger sister who had the whitest skin that I'd ever seen. It was just like milk white, except when attention turned towards her. And then it would turn this lovely shade of crimson. And it was like, a cuckoo clock. It was just that predictable. When attention went, I forget her name, her way, her first response was to change her color, and then she would respond in some way. So I found this quality of this young woman most charming. And my guess is that probably everyone who encountered her thought so too. What a lovely human being who would have two colors of skin instead of just one color of skin. So in thinking about this myself, I realized I have a very strict double standard because I find my own blushing most aversive. My face all on its own is disclosing an inner state that many times I would prefer to keep to myself. I was remembering a moment where Dr. David Burns had invited me up to the DI to model a Team CBT technique. So I think I modeled it in a very mediocre way. And everyone realized that was a very mediocre modeling. And I could feel my face get hot as I sat in my mediocrity. And I found that really aversive. Oh my God, now not only I, but everyone else knows how I'm feeling about what I've just done. So it's a curious phenomena. And I've looked at a bit of research around this rapid vascular response that suddenly distributes a lot of blood flow to facial skin. and try to figure out a bit what's going on when we feel embarrassment, shame, chagrin, and why would we do that? So we tend to blush in situations in which we think there's a chance that we'll be negatively evaluated by other people. So those situations might include being seen committing a social faux pas of some kind or some transgression of the code. And nature seems to have selected for this socio-emotional expression of who we are because it confers advantages in resolving the dilemmas that are inherent in any group's social life. Blushing seems to communicate two things. One, that we regret the faux pas or the social transgression. And second, that we value others' evaluation of us. And these messages seem to help appease and minimize the social disapproval that might otherwise be coming our way. And in that way, they serve an important role in the evolutionary history of our species, because social exclusion following a transgression or faux pas could result in a loss of access to social resources like food, protection, or potential mates. So while we might pull back our skirts from this particular expression, autonomic nervous system expression, it's actually really important. It actually helps us. And I thought that might be a starting point for a conversation about attacking shame, attacking the perception of others' perception of us that would produce that response, and probably also drive some behaviors that might be somewhat maladaptive or disconnect us from each other. So would love to hear, Contessa and Lee, what comes up for you as we take the 10,000-foot view here of shame, embarrassment, and blushing.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Daniel. And thinking about you were mentioning, the blushing on ourselves we sometimes dislike, but I find blushing in other people to be quite heartwarming, maybe in a very socially protective way for them. As you alluded to, I find if I see someone blushing, I think I just kind of have a feeling of endearment towards that person. Their embarrassment is somehow vulnerable and humanizing and calls forward a feeling of warmth from me. And so I see that like social advantage of that blushing playing out there. I can also feel like an increased closeness towards someone who's, blushing in a moment. And I just feel like, oh, this kind of dearness between me and someone who might be feeling embarrassed. And it does communicate to me that they have like a social conscience. I think, oh, this is a good sign about this person. Maybe someone I don't know at all. If I see them blushing, I probably think, oh, well, they're probably thoughtful. They're probably safe, another safe human, those sorts of things. Seems like what kind of comes from the nature of me when I see someone blushing.
I saw a paper that came out of the Netherlands, a place where there are a lot of very pale-skinned people. And it highlighted what you were just saying there, Lee, that we understand the person can't fake that. Maybe a very skilled screen actor could. But when we see that expression, we realize that's legit. Oftentimes we'll hear someone use a word, oh, I feel so embarrassed. Well, we might wonder, do they? But if we blush, it's patently obvious what's going on inside of us. And I think we do trust those people more and feel, as you're saying, closer to them because we realize, oh, they're like us. We blush and probably don't like it. They probably don't like it, but they're just being who they really are here. This is an expression of the reality, not a social presentation of some kind.
Yeah. Well, Heather, by the way, has stepped back in, and Clarissa is going to be taking a little break. But Daniel, I felt closer to you when you told us the story about doing a mediocre job when called up by Dr. Burns. And yeah, I mean, because I have such tremendous admiration for you and often see you as, being so smart and talented and skilled. It's refreshing to hear about times where you were kind of more average and just like us. And I agree with you. I think I actually realize I have a little quibble with the idea of shame attacking, because I actually think of it as more as shame embracing. I think shame is kind of the ultimate social bonding emotion. It what lets us know when we may have stepped out of bounds, out of the social norm. It is the emotion of consideration and belonging. And I have recently come across the secret ingredient, for me at least, that makes me start to want to embrace my shame. And when it rises up, to greet it with gratitude. It's really helpful guidance. And my secret ingredient is basic human dignity, which I think I hadn't totally gotten before, because in the past, when I would have a shame reaction, it's like I would crash through the floor and start feeling worthless. And when instead I realized that we're all humans in this together, that all of us have struggles and all of us will make mistakes, especially if we're trying to learn something new or trying to color outside the lines, then shame is just really helpful feedback that we are maybe transgressing kind of norms. And then we can decide consciously if that's something we want to do or don't want to do. It's just feedback. And it's super useful.
Are you saying, Heather, that if we were to accept that we're hardwired for this response and not see it as an enemy of some kind, but an essential part of our humanity and our social lives with each other, then the shame, blushing, stammering, whatever might be going on that would disrupt our usual presentation would not be a problem? It would just be part of who we are.
Yeah. And I mean, just as you were saying, there's a kind of closeness, and I would say even admiration that I feel towards other people displaying a shame reaction. It tells me they have the guts to go outside their zone of comfort.
Would it also be saying that they are all willy-nilly just being themselves?
Yeah, exactly. I think you were saying it's the ultimate expression of authenticity, right? You can't fake that.
So if our agenda were to embrace shame, would shame attacking be counterproductive or not have a role?
I think you just change the name. You can call it shame embracing.
How would that look? If you were to embrace shame, what would you be doing?
Well, I might be wearing a ridiculous wig and putting myself in a position where my heart is pounding and I'm having thoughts like, oh my God, what you're doing is so ridiculous. For example.
But it wouldn't be to attack something.
No, it would be to celebrate something, I think. And I find it exciting. I have to say, in the last year's round of the shame attacking, I realized I was a little bit of a hypocrite because I was avoiding doing things that felt uncomfortable. And I think we talked in that conversation about kind of this rule following that we do, right? If we have a rigid rule that shame is bad and we shouldn't feel it, then we kind of operate in this narrow set of rules. And it's very hard to kind of explore the world in that way. We're navigating by kind of don't do this, don't do that, as opposed to navigating by like, let me actually be in the world and feel it, feel what happens, feel the response of when I put myself out and what do I get back? It's a much more intimate way to be in the world, I think, when we're willing to listen to shame and its message.
Hmm. Are you saying, Heather, that it's not shame that's the problem, it's avoiding situations where we might have that response that creates the smaller life?
Yeah, and maybe it's the judging shame. It's seeing shame as a bad thing, and then the avoidance that comes after that. And what I love about your stories and what Lee was saying was, just there's a reminder that when we see that blushing response in others, it's so endearing. And so being able to channel that, are we willing to give ourselves that same respect, that same kind of basic human dignity of like, this is what it's like to be a human being, to care about things, to try, to want to belong.
I really like what you're saying there, Heather. Yes, we may have to reconsider our title, or maybe just continue to deepen our understanding of this part of who we are and ways in which it plays into living a smaller life. Where do you notice patients get stuck when it comes to shame?
My first thought is the shame that they feel about themselves. And then they, of course, fear that others may be judging them. But often it's their own shame and guilt about some social thing they think they should have not done or should not do. Shame attacking is part of our, and our approach to it is a behavioral tool for anxiety, right? And so I think shame is kind of like this form of anxiety, right? We treat it as a piece of anxiety with exposure. And I think of our other anxiety tools and how, for the longest time we've thought like, we'll do exposure to decrease the anxiety, right? If I expose myself to something a number of times, like rejection, same doing rejection training, right? And if I just expose myself to enough rejection, the anxiety will go away. And it seems like we've learned that, yeah, sometimes that's true. And other times my anxiety about having rejection won't go away, but my ability to tolerate that rejection will build. And my ability to approach despite my anxiety and despite my fear can grow. And I wonder if there's some, if we think of shame in that way, we may not banish all of our shame, but we may grow some shame attacking parts of us, right? Or some shame embracing parts of us by doing what we call shame attacking exercises. Like we find when we find the world hasn't ended, when we've done something, a good shame attack. I think that's the most glorious part is the building of the muscles and the building of the belief in ourself and the world, that we can do whatever the thing is. And maybe we'll feel shame. Maybe we'll feel as much as we thought. Maybe we'll feel more. Maybe we'll feel less. But in the end, if we're doing the shame attacking, I think in the way we conceive it, we'll end up feeling empowered because we'll realize that we can do things that we're afraid of and things that we feel ashamed about doing, and that nothing happens or nothing catastrophic happens, or that we can go on and we'll be okay. And I think in many of our shame attacks are examples from last year and some examples I saw in the fall in teaching about shame attacking. And in my own demos of that, I found that, our fears are that something terrible is going to happen, right? In anxiety or fear is something terrible is going to happen, or that I won't be okay if that negative thing happens. And I'm thinking of, like a shame attacking example I like I think I jumped like a frog or something in Lytton Square in Palo Alto. And I wouldn't say that I was like, oh, I just can't wait to, become someone who can like jump like a frog in Lytton Square. That's like my dream. Because it wasn't. But what came out of it was very powerful, not because I'm capable of jumping like a frog in public now, but because I'm capable of doing something that I would feel embarrassed about doing. And I know that I can do that and I'll be fine. And I going into that, I could fear that someone could judge me. And I think there were some people who did. And they were like, and they just kind of moved away. And then other people became interested, right? So if my fear is that, oh, someone will judge me, partially that was correct, right? Some people did, but I was still okay. And then on the other hand, some people didn't judge me. They thought that was interesting. They were like, what are you doing? That's so interesting, right? And, I think I rolled on my back and, it was very silly. But I think when we're doing shame attacking and, we embrace it, we're facing those typical anxiety fears that something bad will happen and I won't be okay. And that the greatest thing that we can get to come out of that is that I can do some of these risky feeling things, whatever they are. And I'll be fine. And then I think that feels very simple, but it can be super empowering. And that's a kind of empowerment that I wish for everyone.
I love what you're saying, Lee. I love how it's emphasizing kind of adding something rather than subtracting something, rather than trying to make anxiety go away. What we can do is increase our willingness, increase our ability, increase our power to choose things that previously had felt forbidden. Kind of creating a bigger container. So you might feel that anxiety feeling, but it's in this bigger space, has a different meaning. It doesn't mean stop. It's just a little bit of information.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks, Heather.
As I was listening to you, Lee, I was remembering a friend of mine. I was part of a group in the Pacific Northwest that was organizing against the Trident nuclear submarine base, Pacific Life Community. We did civil disobedience. We'd go on to the base, and my friend was a small woman, and she would be at the front line. Anytime there was an action, there'd be these big burly Pan Am guards with all these guns and everything. She'd be walking right up to them. And people in the community said, wow, you're so brave. She go, what? I said, no, I'm the biggest chicken shit I know. But I don't let that get in the way of working to create a world that my children will be able to live in, my grandchildren will live in. And I think that was her expression of, it wasn't not feeling fear, it was not being governed or restricted by fear, or not having the fear interfere with values that were very important to her as a mom, as a human being.
So as we think about our shame attacking and shame embracing, maybe we're shame overcoming, or shame strengthening, or something like that. They're like, we can think of these different ways to think about our shame attacking. Okay?
Shame allowing?
Shame allowing, yeah. Kind of self-empowering, self-empowering through shame attacking.
I wonder, is there some acceptance and commitment therapy flavor here?
I was going to say there's a metaphor. You were talking about not being ruled by shame. There's this metaphor of the passengers on the bus, so that we could let shame drive the bus and determine where we go, or we could make room for it and allow it to be a passenger, but we'll still decide where we're going to drive based on our values.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
If we were to add some carrot to the contest, I find that every time that I do shame attacking or I'm around someone who does, I have fun and I feel closer to that person. I was in a grocery store and this child, she was maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6, something like that. She came crawling up the aisle and she had these whiskers drawn on her face. And she came up and she purred and she rubbed against my leg. And I, reached down, I petted her. I said, "Oh, good kitty. Aren't you a lovely kitty?" Like she rolled over, invited me to rub her belly. I didn't know this child. She didn't know me. But that approach connected us in this playful way that was a lot more fun than walking by each other in the aisle and going, "Oh, hi," or something like that. So I think when we bring in that element of we can make believe, we can dress up, we can fool around with identity. At the end of the day, we're not separate from Contessas or from kitties or from anything. So we can just be that aspect of things with each other. And I think there's maybe something very wise about playing together in that way.
That was my experience watching some of the videos from last time, is seeing the joy of the onlookers. Like I remember, I'm forgetting her name, but one of the contestants wore some elaborate ball gown as she went into Target. And
Right.
all the people who saw her were delighted.
Yeah, it was a wedding dress.
Mm-hmm.
She put on her wedding dress. And so she was the bride. And it wasn't until the end of the video, you saw her pushing her 3-year-old son in the basket. So that was part of the hit, right? Here comes the bride. Oh, and her 3-year-old son.
Yeah.
I think there was a particular resonance in a Catholic culture for that kind of juxtaposition.
Yeah. I like, Daniel, how you say, having fun and feeling closer, and think also, just like kind of feeling more alive, feeling, God, this is life.
That, Lee, that totally strikes a chord with me, because like I can go through my day getting all the important stuff done, but I can look at the end of the day and what happened? Like I did all the stuff I was supposed to do. If I didn't do something that I wasn't supposed to do, if I didn't do something new or behaviorally different, it almost feel like that the day was lost. Like I want to do or experience something fresh each day. That is what makes me feel alive.
You like to color outside the lines.
Yeah, kind of expand the map, right? Look at the area that hasn't yet been explored.
I think that feeling of triumphing over fear also is a enlivening feeling. Trying something new.
Mm-hmm. Well, the emotion of fear and the emotion of excitement are very similar physiologically, right? It's really just our cognition that makes one seem like a bad thing and one seem like something we pursue.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking of contact improv, where we don't know what's going to happen. We just kind of lean in and feel what's happening, feel the energy that's coming back, put some energy out there. And I've noticed taking my new puppy around town, everyone wants to come and have contact with the puppy. And the puppy loves having contact and licking and jumping up and being a puppy. And, we'd call it play. A puppy likes to play, or people like to play with a puppy. But it seems like a cute puppy's a universal solvent for decorum. Everyone from very straight-laced looking people, well-dressed, they just kind of melt and become something else, something more real, maybe, when there's a catalyst like that. So maybe when we're offering our shame attacking, we're offering our puppiness. Hey, let's play. Let's see what happens here. And I've noticed that when I've done that, people not all people, but usually there are a couple of people who want to play along, who want to do what I was doing with the kitty. Oh, what a darling kitty. It's almost irresistible.
Yeah. It seems it's interesting, Daniel, you say many people want to, play along and some people don't. And I wonder if it's just kind of our state of mind. Some people at one moment in time don't, like they're kind of in the non-playful state of mind. And they're just declining to say, they're just kind of declining. They're saying, I'm not going to enter the playful state of mind right at this moment. But I like to think that it's still open to them should they choose to. But we kind of get to choose if we're going to enter that state of mind and join in the fun. So it can be scary.
Yeah, it takes energy. And for someone to join the play, street theater, whatever we want to call it, it takes, some willingness to go with the disinhibition. Someone's breaking the rules in a playful way. Okay, I'm willing to stop what I'm doing and go over and break the rules with you. And people may or may not be interested in doing that, though. Yes, like you, I've seen in the video entries from our contest last year, there were always some people who would hang around and interact and have opinions, about things. So it's an invitation to our communities to loosen up, play around a bit.
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah. If I'm watching kids on a playground, they're just naturals at it. They're doing all kinds of stuff and having a great time. But something gets lost along the way. When I'm at the gym, I don't see much of that spirit. I see mirrors, right? There are mirrors. You can watch yourself work.
Daniel, you got to take a Zumba class then.
Oh, boy, that's a great idea.
That's where the fun's at the gym.
Yeah, I've heard great things about Zumba. I haven't dipped into it, but thank you for the invitation. Well, I wonder, do you have any advice for our entrance this year when it comes to, I think the Germans have an expression, jumping over your shadow, being willing to leave yourself behind and just go with something before all of that decorum. What would be your advice for a neophyte when it comes to shame embracing, accepting, attacking, allowing?
Well, this is a little bit self-promoting, but if anybody wants sort of a practice space, improv classes are a great way to do exactly this, kind of color outside the lines, be spontaneous, be in the present moment, get playful, and playing with make-believe.
And are you offering such classes currently, Heather?
I do. We have them at Berkeley Improv, but most major cities have some improv classes, and there are lots of online classes. So if you Google improv wherever you are, I'm sure you'll find improv classes.
I love that idea.
My thoughts are that the rewards are well worth the investment. And so I'd encourage anyone new to shame attacking, accepting, embracing, to give it a try at any level. I think, we can do it at very small levels. Like starting small is totally great. And it might just feel so amazing that you just want to keep growing and growing.
I love that. I love setting it up as a no lose kind of can't lose situation, because especially if you think of it as like an experiment, like you're going to discover something new no matter what happens.
Yeah, I love the experimental approach. Totally agree. Yeah. So try and experiment. See what you learn.
I would suggest bring someone along. If it's just you, we can start getting stage fright or something. But if we bring someone along, I remember our colleague Jacob Towery had his son, Bryce, video his silver medal entry. I think it was last year. They're in
Wow.
Hawaii. And it was wonderful, along with Jacob's magnificent dance presentation, to hear Bryce's giggles and feel the camera shaking as he was laughing at his dad. So if you bring one other person, your videographer or someone who can join you in your shameless presentation, then you can have a sense of solidarity there and might lower the bar as opposed to doing it all on your own, holding up your selfie stick or something.
I love that. I love that.
I should say one of my entries was disqualified last year because I didn't videotape it. So I remember telling you about it, Daniel, and you said, well, show us the video. And I was like, oh, I don't have video.
Well, our contest, like ourselves on good days, is evolving. So this year we're going to accept video entries, and the three of us will be setting ourselves up in high judgment of the entries and be announcing our winner in early August this year. So we will encourage you to shamelessly go or shamefully go out and create that footage, send it over, and maybe we can all move the flag forward in the direction of just having some fun with each other.
Love it.
All right. Well, any final words for our potential entrants this year?
The thing I'm thinking that someone might be wondering, like, oh, what shall I do for shame attacking? They might be coming up short. I wonder if we want to brainstorm 10 or 20 or 2 ideas.
Yeah, well, what comes to mind, Lee?
Well, probably looking at the entries from last year, like checking out last year's contest would easily inspire people. And there's a number, there's probably, there's a number there. Jacob was singing and rapping and people were singing and dancing. And, I've seen Jacob is an excellent shame attacker. I've seen him encourage people to make animal sounds on the street, pretend to be different animals, wear like a paper bag for a hat. Those two are, I've seen Jacob suggest for folks, and those are awesome. I've heard people, asking, I think you mentioned this, Daniel, like asking to have someone's, and I think David has mentioned this before, like asking to have a taste of someone's food at a restaurant, or other things that might be like not socially conventional, but not harmful to anyone.
I love all these. By the way, if you Google shame attacking, you will come across some various lists of shame attacking exercises. So a little Google research will also help
inspire people. Perfect. Yeah. So now people know they can Google shame attacking, come up with tons of ideas, and try any one of those out and submit it.
There's also a great book called Rejection Proof about a guy who set out to collect rejections. And what happened was he wasn't getting rejected. And like when he would ask people to do these outrageous things for him, they started actually doing them for him. And then he ended up going viral. And so that's a great book to get inspired.
There was an entry from Stuttgart, Germany last year, where there's a Porsche museum. And they have I think every Porsche that was ever built is on display there. So one fellow went in and asked if he could test drive. I think it was a 356 Porsche, which was this icon. There's maybe 4 of them in the world or something, and it's up there on a big thing. And he just went in and said, gee, I've always admired that car. Could I take it for a spin around the ring? And it wasn't video, it was audio entry. But I wish I could have seen the guard's face because I doubt that he'd heard that request before. So if there's something in your town, in your culture, that is somewhat unique, that might be a good place to look. What could you do here that people couldn't do other places in the world? And there's another entry from India where they have these auto rickshaws, these like ways to get around quickly. And this entrant asked the auto rickshaw driver if he could like go home with him for dinner because he was hungry. And I think the guy played along with him and said, well, yeah, you could, but you wouldn't want to eat my wife's food. So kind of threw the ball back in his court. So yeah, if you just go with what's in your hood and invite folks to play along, we could probably create some wonderful vignettes to inspire all of us to be a bit more childlike when it comes to being adults. All right. Well, thank you, fellow judges. Thank you, Contessa, for taking
You're
time
so
away
welcome.
from, pardon?
You are so welcome.
Yeah, we know your schedule's very full, but very much appreciate your deigning to join us. And we'll look forward to your judgments that we will be casting here later this summer.